My sister framed me for theft while I supported her family, so I exposed everything publicly and took back control they never imagined losing. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and growing up, I was the reliable sibling everyone leaned on but rarely thanked. My younger sister, Lily, was always the golden child. She had this effortless charm that made everyone forgive her missteps. Parents would gush over her accomplishments, while I quietly picked up the pieces when things went wrong. Birthdays, emergencies, small disasters, if it needed doing, I was there, never asking for credit. I used to think loyalty, patience, and sacrifice were the currency of family. I remember one night, Lily called me, panic in her voice. "I can't pay the electricity this month, can you cover it?" I sighed but agreed without hesitation. The apartment smelled of the faint lavender candle she always lit, masking her kids' messy toys scattered across the floor. I dropped the money into her account, telling myself it was temporary, just until she got back on her feet. Later, I would carry groceries for her, fix her broken washing machine, and babysit her kids while she went out with friends. I never kept count, because in my mind, this was what family did. Even school fees weren't immune. I remember sitting at my desk, piles of Lily's tuition statements in front of me, fingers tapping nervously on my laptop. "Thanks, big brother. I don't know what I'd do without you," she'd say, smiling sweetly, oblivious to how much I sacrificed. My parents nodded approvingly, proud that their responsible one was stepping up, while Lily got all the credit and praise. I believed fairness would eventually come, that my diligence and quiet support would be recognized. But deep down, there was a small voice whispering that maybe, just maybe, I was being taken for granted. I brushed it aside, telling myself I was the strong one, the dependable one, the one who always did the right thing. That sense of pride made me blind. And I had no idea that loyalty, which I wore like armor, was about to be twisted into something far more painful. It started small at first, text messages asking for gas money, occasional lunches, little emergencies. I never hesitated. I thought love and family meant showing up, being the rock when no one else would. But over time, Lily's requests became bolder, more frequent, and somehow, more entitled. I remember the night she called, her voice tight with fake panic. "I can't cover the daycare this week, can you help me again?" I rubbed my eyes, exhausted from work, but I nodded, forcing myself to stay calm. "All right. I'll handle it," I said, hiding my frustration. The apartment she lived in was cluttered and noisy, toys scattered across the floor, her two kids screaming while she paced like a storm contained by four walls. I sat on the worn couch, counting out the bills, feeling the weight of my own bank account shrinking. I wondered if this was really how family was supposed to work, but I pushed the doubt aside. It was Lily, my sister, I owed her everything. Then came the day I realized how deep this imbalance ran. I had helped her buy a used car after her old one broke down, covering half of the cost and arranging the loan for the rest. She hugged me tightly, whispering, "You're the best brother ever. I don't know how I'd survive without you." I felt proud, like I'd done something noble. But that pride was short-lived. A week later, I overheard her on the phone, laughing with a friend. "Yeah, he's hopeless, he'll do anything I ask." I love that. My stomach dropped. That voice, the one I trusted, wasn't grateful. It was calculating. I sat there, stunned, staring at the scattered toys, the fading candlelight reflecting off the peeling walls. The realization hit like ice, my loyalty wasn't being respected, it was being exploited. I wanted to confront her, to demand some recognition, but fear and habit kept me silent. For the first time, I wondered if my sense of duty had been a trap all along. And then, just when I thought I understood the rules of this family, something happened that shattered all my assumptions. But I couldn't have prepared for it. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. I was at my parents' house, quietly helping fix the backyard fence, when Lily stormed in with her kids in tow. Her face was bright with excitement, but there was an edge in her voice I hadn't heard before. "You need to see this," she said, waving her phone like a trophy. Curious, I leaned over, and that's when I saw it, a social media post flaunting a brand new phone, a designer backpack, and tickets to a weekend getaway. The caption read, "Thanks to my amazing brother for always supporting me #blessed." I froze, scrolling through the comments. Friends congratulated her on her hard work, her generosity, and her dedication. My hands clenched into fists. I had been the one funding every bill, every tuition payment, every little indulgence she treated as her right. And here she was, twisting my sacrifices into public applause for herself. I felt my chest tighten, every breath sharp and shallow. The backyard smelled like cut grass and dust, but I barely noticed. My mind was consumed with disbelief and rage. "Lily, what is this?" I asked, voice trembling but controlled. Her smile widened, innocent yet cunning. "Oh, you mean that? I just wanted everyone to know how lucky I am, and how lucky my kids are too. We couldn't do it without you." The words stung like acid. I had spent years believing loyalty and sacrifice would be recognized, that fairness and gratitude were real. Instead, I was a prop in her carefully curated life, my generosity exploited for social clout. I walked away without another word, heart pounding, trying to make sense of what I'd just seen. My parents watched silently, nodding along as if this was normal. I realized, in that moment, that my sense of family, duty, and love had been weaponized against me. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the hum of the street outside creeping in through the open window. The realization settled in like a lead weight, everything I had done to help Lily had been manipulated. And if I didn't do something soon, the line between being a brother and being a doormat would disappear entirely. But I wasn't ready to act yet. Not until I uncovered something even more shocking about how far this betrayal went. The next week, I discovered just how deep Lily's manipulation ran. I had gone over to check on her kids, partly out of habit, partly because I still cared despite everything, and noticed something off. Bills were piling up on the counter, unopened, while a glossy brochure for a luxury family vacation sat neatly on top. My stomach sank. I asked, "Lily, did you pay the utilities?" She laughed lightly, tossing her hair over her shoulder. "Oh, don't worry about that. I got it covered, kind of." Her eyes flicked to me, but there was no real warmth there. That, kind of, hit me like a punch. I looked closer at the statements and realized the truth, she hadn't paid a single bill. Every month I had been footing the costs, every late notice, every overdue fee, it had all been quietly accumulating on my dime, while she lived as though she'd earned the luxury she flaunted online. The apartment smelled faintly of perfume, masking the chaos, unwashed dishes, scattered toys, and the faint sour odor of forgotten laundry. I could hear her kids laughing, oblivious to the tension I felt. My hands shook as I tried to process it. Why would you do this?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. She shrugged, indifferent. "I mean, you always help anyway, right? It's easier this way." I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her see how cruel this was. But I didn't. Instead, I left quietly, heart hammering, mind racing. My parents were already calling, asking if everything was okay, their tone casual, almost approving. And that's when it hit me, the whole system had been rigged against me. My sacrifice wasn't being acknowledged. It was being stolen, twisted into convenience and public praise for Lily. That night, I sat on my balcony, the city lights casting harsh shadows across my apartment. My head throbbed, my chest burned, and for the first time, I felt completely powerless. All my years of loyalty, all my efforts to support her, had been a smokescreen. But I couldn't let this end here. I had to find out just how far Lily's deceit stretched, and what she was hiding that could destroy me completely. It all came crashing down one evening when I logged into my bank account. My jaw dropped, stomach twisting into knots. Tens of thousands of dollars were missing. Bills I had paid for, money I had saved meticulously over years, it was gone. And worse, it had been funneled directly into Lily's accounts and her lavish lifestyle. I stared at the screen, disbelief giving way to a hollow, burning rage. I immediately called her. "Lily, what the hell is going on? Where's the money?" My voice shook, raw with betrayal. She sounded calm, almost amused. "Oh, that? Don't worry about it. I just borrowed it a little longer. You know, for the kids, for emergencies." Her laugh was light, but I heard the calculation behind it. Every late-night favor, every loan, every unpaid bill, it had all been orchestrated. The apartment I'd visited weeks ago, the chaos, the laughter of her kids, the perfume masking the mess, it wasn't just incompetence. It was a carefully crafted illusion to keep me working, sacrificing, blind to the theft happening right under my nose. I could feel the floor beneath me shift, the ground of my trust cracking. My parents, who had always praised me as the dependable one, had no idea, or worse, they chose to ignore it. I sat down heavily on my bed, the air thick and stale, trying to catch my breath. The hum of the street outside felt distant, unreal, like I was watching my life from a third-party lens. I had spent years thinking loyalty and family meant fairness, that sacrifice would be recognized, that love was reciprocated. Instead, I had been a pawn, a tool in Lily's carefully curated life of deception. My hands shook as I gripped the edge of the mattress. I felt smaller than ever, powerless, and humiliated. For the first time, I truly understood the depth of betrayal. But amidst the despair, a single thought ignited: she hadn't counted on me figuring this out, and she certainly hadn't counted on me fighting back. I knew I had to act, but I wasn't sure how. I spent the next few days in a fog. Every memory of helping Lily, every sacrifice I'd made, replayed in my mind like a cruel montage. I couldn't eat, couldn't focus at work, and every notification from my bank made my stomach drop. I felt hollow, like someone had siphoned not just my money but my dignity, my trust, and the illusion of family. Nights were the worst, silent, dark, the hum of the city outside my window pressing in, reminding me that I'd been blind for so long. I tried confronting her again. "Lily, we need to talk. You can't just take money like that." Her voice, calm and patronizing, cut deeper than I expected. "You're always so dramatic. I'm doing what I need for us, for the kids. Don't make this bigger than it is." I realized then that she wasn't remorseful, she was unapologetic. My anger flared, but so did the sense of clarity. She wasn't a sister in need. She was a manipulator, and I'd been playing right into her hands for years. I started piecing together everything: the small favors, the borrowed cash, the unpaid bills, the public posts praising her sacrifices as if she earned them. Every instance of my generosity had been twisted into her advantage. My parents' blind admiration of her only made it worse. They'd never questioned it, never defended me. I felt isolated, cornered, but strangely, a new energy surged within me. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this slide, not quietly, not anymore. I started gathering evidence: bank statements, messages, receipts, photos. Every interaction, every favor, every payment would be documented. If she thought she could continue this charade, she was dead wrong. Sitting alone in my apartment, the air thick with tension, I felt the first spark of empowerment in months. Lily had underestimated me. She had assumed I would always be the silent, dependable brother. But now, I had the means, and the plan, to turn the tables. The problem was, I didn't yet know just how far I would have to go. I spent the next week in near constant vigilance. Every time Lily texted or called, I kept my calm, noting details, saving screenshots, recording patterns of deception. I reviewed months of bank statements, comparing them against her public posts and casual remarks. Each inconsistency felt like another dagger, confirming how deep her lies went. My apartment smelled faintly of coffee and old paper from the stacks of receipts and printouts surrounding me, the clutter a chaotic reflection of my mind. One evening, I confronted her quietly while her kids played nearby. "Lily. I know everything," I said, voice steady but low. She looked up, startled, then forced a casual smile. "Everything? That's a bit dramatic, don't you think?" My stomach nodded, but I stayed firm. "You've been taking money, manipulating me, and lying to everyone, including our parents. I've kept track. I know exactly how much you've taken." Her expression flickered, a shadow crossing her confident facade. For a moment, I saw panic, or maybe fear, but it vanished quickly. "Oh, so now you're a detective," she mocked, leaning back. Her kids giggled, unaware, chasing each other through the apartment, the chaos masking the tension in the room. I could feel my own heartbeat, loud and steady, the adrenaline sharpening my thoughts. That night, I sat alone, reviewing everything again. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was emotional, systematic, a complete exploitation of trust. But now, for the first time, I felt in control. Every stolen dollar, every lie, every manipulated favor would not go unanswered. I could see the path forward clearly: exposure, confrontation, reclaiming what was mine, and finally, teaching her a lesson she wouldn't forget. A plan started to form in my mind, careful and precise. This wasn't about anger anymore, it was about justice, about balance, about taking back control. Lily had assumed I would always be the silent, dependable brother. She had assumed I would always forgive, always sacrifice. She was about to learn exactly what happens when you push someone too far. The next morning, I started putting my plan into motion. I went through every transaction, every borrowed favor, every loan I had covered for Lily. I created a detailed timeline of her lies, screenshots of her boasting online, messages where she casually admitted to taking money, and receipts proving my contributions. I organized it all meticulously. The apartment smelled faintly of old paper and coffee as I spread everything across the living room floor. It was chaotic, but it felt powerful. That afternoon, I went to my parents' house under the guise of a casual visit. Lily was there, naturally charming, laughing with her kids while my parents fawned over her. I forced a smile and sat down quietly, letting the tension build. Then I opened my laptop, and slowly, deliberately, I began showing them everything. Screenshots, bank statements, timelines, all evidence of years of manipulation. My parents' eyes widened, disbelief mixing with shock. Lily's laugh faltered, and for the first time, I saw her composure crack. "Lily, how could you do this?" my mother whispered, voice shaking. The room was heavy with the scent of her perfume, her children's toys scattered across the floor, oblivious to the storm around them. I could see Lily's mind racing, searching for an excuse, a way out. But there was nothing. Every lie, every betrayal, every manipulation was laid bare. For the first time in years, I felt the weight lift. I wasn't just a silent, dependable brother anymore. I was the one holding the truth, the one in control. And Lily realized it. Her eyes darted around, searching for sympathy, pleading for rescue, but there was none. I leaned back, letting the silence stretch, savoring it. The house, once her stage, now felt like a courtroom. My parents looked at her differently, really seeing her for the first time. And I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. But even as relief washed over me, a part of me wondered, what would Lily do next? The day after I exposed everything, the atmosphere at home was tense and fragile. Lily barely spoke, her usual confidence gone, replaced with sharp, defensive glances. My parents avoided eye contact, whispering quietly in the kitchen. I could feel the weight of every stare, every unspoken thought, but I stayed calm, letting them process the truth. For the first time, I saw the consequences of years of manipulation laid bare. That evening, I got a call from Lily. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice tight, almost pleading. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to scream, to confront her fully, but another part understood that power had shifted. I agreed, telling her to meet at a nearby park. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the pavement, the chill in the air matching the tension I felt. She arrived, her kids in tow, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. "Look, she began, but I cut her off. "No, Lily. I've heard enough excuses for a lifetime." I watched as her eyes flicked between me and the kids, searching for sympathy, for some leverage. But I didn't give her anything. "You've lied, stolen, and manipulated everyone around you. And for what? Social posts? Attention? Money that wasn't yours?" Her shoulders slumped, and for a moment, I thought I saw regret. But then she shook her head, trying to regain composure. I didn't know it would get this far," she said softly. I sighed, looking out at the horizon where the last sunlight faded, painting the world in harsh oranges and purples. "You did this. Every choice, every lie, every manipulation, it all led here. And now, everyone knows the truth. I've lost nothing. You've lost credibility, trust, and respect. That's your consequence." Her kids tugged at her sleeve, unaware of the gravity of the conversation. I turned away, the wind cutting cold against my face, feeling a strange mix of relief and lingering anger. The battle wasn't over entirely, but for the first time, I felt I had reclaimed control. And as I walked home, I realized this was just the beginning of truly healing from the betrayal. The days after our confrontation were quieter, almost eerie. My parents began addressing the truth, slowly realizing how much Lily had manipulated them too. I could feel the tension dissolve slightly, replaced with an unspoken acknowledgement of what I had endured for years. It was surreal to see them finally look at me not just as the responsible sibling, but as someone who had been taken advantage of. Lily, on the other hand, became distant, curt, and strangely fragile. She avoided eye contact, barely spoke when I was around, and her usual charm felt hollow. One afternoon, I overheard her on the phone, whispering to a friend, "I didn't think he'd figure it out. I didn't think he'd fight back." That statement hit me like a jolt. For years, she had assumed my loyalty would be blind, my patience endless, my sacrifices unnoticed. I had shattered all of that. Walking through the neighborhood, the crisp air cutting against my skin, I felt a strange sense of liberation. I no longer carried the weight of her deception on my shoulders. Every favor I had done, every late-night call, every cent I had spent, it was all a testament to my character, not a liability. Later, I met with my parents privately, laying out the full extent of Lily's manipulation. They listened, stunned, regretful, but understanding finally settled in. We discussed boundaries, accountability, and how to protect ourselves going forward. For the first time, it felt like we were on the same side, not pitted against each other by deception. That night, sitting alone in my apartment, I reflected on everything, the years of sacrifice, the betrayals, the manipulations, and the eventual reckoning. I realized that true strength wasn't just enduring, but knowing when to stand up, to reclaim control, and to set the record straight. For the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't just the responsible one. I was the one who finally took back what was rightfully mine, and I knew Lily would never underestimate me again. By now, Lily's world had started to crumble quietly. Friends who had once praised her generosity began asking questions. My parents set firm boundaries, refusing to co-sign loans, cover bills, or bail her out of every crisis. I watched from a distance as her carefully constructed facade unraveled, and a part of me felt vindicated. The sister who once seemed untouchable now had to face the consequences of her actions. I remember one afternoon, walking past her apartment, seeing her sit at the kitchen table, head in her hands, kids playing quietly around her. The apartment smelled faintly of leftover food and scented candles, the same illusion she always maintained, now failing to mask the chaos of reality. I felt no joy in her struggle, only a quiet satisfaction that truth had a way of surfacing eventually. When she tried to reach out to me, I stayed firm. "Lily, I can't do this anymore. I can't be part of your lies or your manipulation." She pleaded, trying to guilt me, but I didn't waver. "I've done enough for you," I said. "Now, it's time for you to take responsibility." The silence that followed was heavy, the wind outside rattling the windows as if affirming the finality of my decision. That evening, I sat alone on my balcony, the city lights reflecting off the windows across the street. I felt the weight lift completely, replaced with clarity and a sense of justice. Years of being the silent, dependable sibling had prepared me for this moment, and I had finally reclaimed my dignity, my finances, and my peace of mind. For the first time, I realized that loyalty wasn't about blind sacrifice, it was about knowing your worth and enforcing it. Lily had assumed I'd never act, never set limits, never hold her accountable. She was wrong. And as I watched the night settle over the city, I knew I had finally closed the chapter on her manipulation, and myself. It took months, but life finally began to feel steady again. I stopped answering calls that carried guilt, stopped running to solve every crisis that wasn't mine. My parents and I rebuilt our trust, setting boundaries that had been non-existent for years. For the first time, family felt balanced, not a constant drain on my energy and resources. I ran into Lily once at a grocery store. She froze when she saw me, her usual charm replaced by awkward avoidance. Her kids tugged at her sleeves, oblivious, while she offered a forced smile. I walked past, calm and measured, letting her see that the power dynamic had shifted completely. She had lost her leverage, her ability to manipulate, and the smug confidence that had fueled her lies. That evening, I sat alone in my apartment, the hum of the city outside soft and steady. I reflected on everything, the years of sacrifice, the emotional manipulation, the stolen money, and the hidden resentments. I realized that the true cost of loyalty wasn't suffering silently, it was knowing when to reclaim control. I had endured, but I had also acted, and that made all the difference. I finally felt at peace. Lily could rebuild her life however she chose, but I would no longer be a pawn in her games. The quiet satisfaction of justice lingered in the air, subtle but undeniable. I had been the responsible one for years, and now, I was also the one who had set things right. And as I closed the laptop where I documented every betrayal, I felt the weight of the past lift completely. I was free, from manipulation, from guilt, from obligation, and finally, I could focus on myself, my own life, and the future I deserved. Some scars remain, but they are mine, not hers. And in that, I found closure.